As we know, this was a vintage B-17 World War II airplane. It was in the area so people could actually tour it. And our own Bruce DePrest was on that plane just yesterday, I'm told. Bruce is joining us on the phone. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Kara. I was on that plane on Monday, actually, and it was a beautiful Monday with sunshine. And, you know, we were up in Windsor, Corey Peck and I, photographer Corey Peck, we were up in Windsor shooting a story about the upcoming anniversary of the Windsor Locks tornado. And we were diverted by the newsroom to go up to the airport and shoot the vintage aircraft that were on display there. The display was actually beginning at noontime that day. And Corey got all kinds of photos of the planes, and before we left, I remember distinctly Demi Bamber, who is a person that was with the company that sponsors the air show, said, "Hey, how would you like to take a tour of the B-17?" So I remember walking up the ladder. It was a very tight fit, and walking through the fuselage of the aircraft. It's not like any ordinary aircraft. It's a bomber, and I remember how tight the fit was, how I imagine you had to be small and limber just to navigate your way through the aircraft, but we did. We made it through and came out the back of the aircraft and back down into the tarmac, and then we went back to shooting our tornado story.
Bruce, I mean, you're like so many people who just want to feel the history. This plane has such importance in American history as the bomber plane during World War II. And you're right, I've been on board one of those planes before where the tail gunner used to sit underneath. I mean, it is tiny. It was very loud for the pilots. And as we were hearing, and I don't know what you saw from, we were speaking earlier to an expert on this plane, that these planes are 75 years old, and yes, they may be airworthy, but they don't have any of the safety mechanisms that we have on modern aircraft.
This is true. You know, my father was in World War II, and I was just imagining him. He was in the 2nd Marine Division, but I could just imagine these planes flying through the air and what they had to do 75 years ago. But as I got off the plane, you know, I knew that they were offering rides on these planes, and I thought to myself, you know, this is an old aircraft, and I don't know if I would actually have the nerve to do it.
Yeah, my father also was a bomber pilot, and I remember when he had the opportunity, he went back up. It wasn't that long ago, probably within the last 10 years. And you can, to this day, Bruce, if we wanted to, you could fly up in those planes, pay a fee, and experience American history, as many people have done. When you were there yesterday, did you hear anyone signing up? That's, of course, one of the questions. Who was on that plane when it went down? Did they talk about taking people on the flights?
They did. You know, the air show was just about to begin at noon on Monday, and, you know, there were people there. There was a whole flurry of activity going on. It looks like people were signing up to go on board the aircraft, but the show was actually just beginning at that point in time. And I remember being out on the tarmac, and they fired up another plane, and I remember all the smoke that was coming out of the engine as that plane fired up. It wasn't the B-17. It was another aircraft, and I said, wow, this is history right here, 75 years of history. And, of course, I know this air show benefits World War II veterans. And, you know, it's a great cause. And I was just absolutely horrified when I found out that B-17 crashed this morning.
It certainly is an emotional pull for everyone who's hearing about it and seeing. I know eyewitnesses who saw this, Bruce, even if they're not military guys. We spoke to someone who said he was walking his dog and he looked up and he's like, oh my gosh, that's a B-17. And he knew right away from watching the movies, or perhaps you've had someone, a grandfather or a parent involved. These were tanks of a plane. They were very, very heavy, and yet it is still 75 years old. And my understanding is we only have about, I think it was down to less than 10 of these that were airworthy. And this one, as you're showing us the picture, Bruce, was the 909 based out of Stowe, Massachusetts, which had a very famous history.
You know, it's a beautiful aircraft. You look at it and you say, wow, they really built these things 75 years ago, if not even before then. And you just imagine this flying fortress going through the air loaded with bombs and what it had to do during World War II. But you look at it today on a tarmac and you say, my goodness, what a beautiful aircraft that was.
Yeah, I think you echo the sentiments of so many, and of course, so many good thoughts and prayers going out. We understand that at least 6 people have been taken to Hartford Hospital. And Bruce, I'm happy you're with us, because what's happening right now is we're just waiting for a news conference. It's supposed to begin at about noon. And of course, everyone is waiting to hear if we're going to find out. You can see the mic checks are going on. who was on that plane. We know at least 6 people were taken to the hospital. There have been some other reports, unconfirmed, from our crews of situations where people did not make it out. But that, again, unconfirmed, and we're waiting to hear from the governor and from the doctors who are treating the victims who were rushed to the hospital from this crash. Amazing from seeing the smoke and the flames. I think people would who witnessed this would say it's amazing, and good news that there were victims taken to the hospital, given how much fire came out of that plane.
This is true. You know, my thoughts and prayers just go out with all the people who were involved in this airplane crash. Not only the people who were injured, but the first responders. The first responders deserve a lot of credit in any sort of tragedy like this. And Kara, I just can't imagine how horrific the scene was up there this morning. I've been watching the pictures. I even phoned my sister out in Arizona, and I said, Karen, you can't believe what just happened. I was on this airplane just 2 days ago, gathering video and sound for a story that we aired on Channel 3, and here it is 2 days later, that plane is gone.
Absolutely, Bruce. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know you, like many other people, take the time to go see these planes, and it is an emotional experience for so many, even just remembering what the World War II veterans did. And we know we're losing the World War II veterans at a rate of some 1,300 a day. So this is a piece of history gone, and all we can hope for is that perhaps there may be some people who are okay who were on that plane.